Trucking smart without knowledge is a dangerous game. Tonight, we're going to explore how smart decisions on load selection, maintenance, and networking can keep you moving forward while rising costs and unpredictable rates threaten to stall even the most experienced of drivers. Yeah, you guys think you know it all? Well, you know what? There's people out there that know more than you. And how about $700 million that belongs to the working men and women of this industry being attacked from a different angle? Yeah, we're going to attack it from a different angle tonight. I'm hitting things from an angle nobody expects. And I want you guys to join the conversation and learn how to master the trucking game, just like you seen on the thumbnail. Because you know what? Without knowledge, it's a really dangerous road ahead. Unpredictable times. We're going to talk about it tonight. Broadcasting from inside Truckin City Mobile Studio. Well, normally mobile. But tonight I'm at the headquarters. Next week, we'll be mobile. Until then, we're here. We're having more fun than any news show host is allowed to have anywhere on YouTube. Boss Man here, a 13-year veteran of the trucking industry, pointing out that there's always a way to make trucking great again. Doing so with a skill granted by God himself to restore your faith in broadcast talent. We're highlighting mainly the items I said a minute ago, but in addition to that, we're also highlighting some real important things, like what to expect with another Trump administration. From Matt Cole at Overdrive Online, he's written an article talking about that very thing, and specifically speaking about trucks. In the speech, he highlighted that Trump alluded to the range of challenges that electric trucks currently pose on the market and present compared to their diesel counterparts. Interesting article and interesting read. I implore you to take advantage. Click the link below. Have a look for yourself. I'd like to hear from you if you'd like to discuss this and or the effect Trump has on trucking in future episodes of Frontlines. Let us know. Also, another read I think you would find interesting. ATA wants the industry to unite and fight for pro-trucking policies. This said by Go By Truck News on an article October 15th. The American Trucking Association president, Chris Spear, was quoted as saying, "Our 8.5 million employees aren't just moving goods. We're supporting the lives of millions of hardworking Americans who depend on trucking each day to keep this country running smoothly." Links to both of these stories will be below, and it's ripe for discussion on not only tonight's show, but other future shows. Email us at thatstruckingnews@outlook.com and let us know if you think this would be an interesting read or discussion on a future show. This and other important topics are coming up on Frontlines, now open for your debate.
Shall we begin?
From Truckin City Central Command, you are on the Frontlines. Truckin News.
The semi-truck driver accused of causing that deadly crash on Highway 285 this week now under arrest.
Cutting edge opinion. And we will make trucking great again. Built for truckers.
You should be hauling that freight based on what works for you.
By truckers.
Remember, get them done.
Featuring.
I think trucking is a very good career.
And I am gonna beat them.
I'm gonna beat him too.
We don't do it just for us and our families. We do it for you guys.
Remember, truckers are people too.
Hosted by the El Rushbo of Truckin News, Boss Man. 860-785-3547. That's our number. That's going to get you our studio lines. Call today and be a part of the show. Email us at thatstruckinnews@outlook.com. Greetings to you, truck lovers, truth seekers, and visionaries all across the heartlands. We are back behind the golden TIB microphone. We are talking to you about ways to make trucking great again using news, stories, and inspiration that help you become better. Welcome to the best call-in show for truckers. You guessed it, run by truckers, administered through something called the Truckin Broadcasting Network. We welcome you to the show. We have a host of panels that it comprises mainly almost 150 years worth of experience, people that know the group, know the business, know the route, know the roads. Good Lord, my eye teeth are not lined. You guys got suggestions, let me know in the comments. But we have your best interests in mind. We have, on a normal basis, the grumpy old trucker, Larry the trucker, Thumper and Bo, of course, in the back seat, and Poet from the north. We usually have Fate Truckin as part of the cast. He's been in and out a little bit tonight. Driving with John usually joins us. We are simulcasting on his channel this evening. If these guys get a chance to dive in with their busy schedules, I certainly respect whether they do or don't. But all told, they equal 150 years worth of experience, destined to give you the best in opinion, news, and information. So we're going to dive right into some of these stories, give you guys what you're tuning in for. So hang tight and stand by for what I call my opening thoughts, coming straight to you, straight from the front lines. If you guys in the audience have a thought on a story or thing you'd like to cover, please let me know. I'm putting my email address out there because I want to hear from you. You guys are what make this show possible. So if you have something that you think would be good fodder for future episodes, send it to us. That's truckingnews@outlook.com. Meantime, you guys got to realize something. Fraud is something that I've covered on a few of my previous journal episodes, and I'm going to dive a little bit into it again tonight. We are talking about, it's one thing to be out there putting in the long hours, the hard miles, keeping America moving, but it's another thing entirely when you've got scammers, bad actors, and fraudsters lurking in the shadows. And believe you me, they hang tight and they're with us every day in every way possible. Make sure I keep my lines here. These crooks are getting sophisticated, and they're using technology to stay one step ahead of us. But as of now, we're fighting back. There was an article about a specific tool. You guys may know about this, you guys may not. But again, it's linked in the description of this live feed. Certainly have fun looking at it. But here's my take from what I pulled from that article. Trucker Tools has launched, and I'm not supporting the norm. I support supported by, sponsored by, or endorsing. I'm just opining on an article. But they've launched a new suite of fraud identification features. And I have to say, this might just be the start of something. We're talking about tools that can block fraudulent international IP addresses, sniff out masked IPs, and flag those sneaky little voice over internet protocol phone numbers that scammers often use to hide their tracks. Well, I'm talking about it from the trucking perspective, but hey, Trucker Tools, send it to AT&T. I'd like them to get in on this. But seriously, folks, we're seeking out capabilities. We're seeing capabilities, right? Like geofencing, document geotagging, and proactive location verification. All of this designed to keep the honest trucker like you and me protected. Think about this. Scams like double brokering alone claim up to almost $700 million a year from carriers and brokers. And that equates to money in our pocket, okay? That's 700 million that belongs to every one of us that work every day out here. That money could be going back into new rigs, new maintenance programs, ways to improve your daily livelihood. And instead of lining the pockets of these fraudsters, we could be using this for our benefit. And it's just the beginning of the conversation, okay? We're talking about things like combating double brokering right from the start, technology, the role brokers play in this, okay? We're talking about a number of things tonight. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get your input. If you've had a chance to look at this article, or if you've not, tell me if this kind of thing that Trucker Tools is trying to implore, or this kind of worry without it being in front of you, is something that really keeps you awake at night. Because to be honest with you, I don't really think about it very much. And I use Trucker Path when it comes to navigating, but my understanding is there's a difference. So if y'all know the difference between the tools and the programs, by all means, jump in the comments, call our studio line, let us know what you think. I'd certainly like to hear your thoughts on getting yourself protected. 860-785-3547. We are looking out for you guys. And when I see an article that talks about new tools and new tactics, I certainly want to hear from you. So let's bring this to the panel. Let's see what they think, and put in the comments your thoughts on fraud in trucking. We'd certainly like to start this conversation. When it comes down to it, Grumpy, you're one that doesn't really have a lot to do with brokers, but I'm sure that you rest easier knowing that there's something in the background that's eliminating the possibility that you could make less money. What do you think?
There's a lot of things that lurk in the background that can make me keep from making money as a company driver. I mean, one big thing is like you're saying, the double broker and stuff. I mean, if somebody double brokers it, that messes us up, because my company, actually, the owner was into brokerage before he bought this company. So he's very experienced and well knowledgeable about how it works, and he's able to get us loads pretty easily.
Right. Anything else that comes out that you think would be worthy paying attention to more than what we're talking about tonight? I mean, what comes first in your mind?
I reckon maybe equipment type costs and stuff like that would be a problem and issue too, because I mean, if you got put out money for that, it makes it more difficult if you're not receiving enough freight to keep the miles running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. I mean, when it comes down to the double brokering you're talking about, I mean, why do you think this problem has gotten so widespread? I mean, what do you think is, maybe I'll put Thumper on this one, because you probably, Thumper, deal more with brokers than Grumpy does. So, why do you think it's become so widespread? And what do you think, as yourself, an owner operator, what would you think of as be the first stop that you could think of as a means to protect yourself?
I don't really deal with brokers.
Well, I mean, on the grain side, you said the other night on a previous live, you do on occasion. So, I mean,
yeah, on
that's kind of why I thought
occasion.
about it. Yeah.
On occasion. I mean, I guess if I were to get a broker load, I would look at the score they have.
Mhm.
If I think there's even like a guideline out there. I can't remember what it
Yeah.
was, but if it's under a certain number, they recommend not using them.
Right.
Unless they have a certain way to verify that they are a legit, company and stuff. But yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I do is all contracted out, so don't really deal with a whole lot of brokers. Just that rare occasion I do.
Right. Do you think that the technology I spoke of in this article with Trucker Tools goes a long way to making you feel better? I mean, are you more apt to use that or feel better about it?
Yeah,
Does it
I
really
would.
sway you one way or the other?
I would actually, because if it's anything like AT&T and Verizon with the spam calling,
Yeah.
I mean, why can't they figure out? I mean, it sounds like they are figuring it out, how to correspond it into the load
Mhm.
cons and stuff like that for the
Right.
brokerage. So I mean, if they could figure it out and get it down to a T, yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But just like anything else, it's all going to be trial and error. It's not going to happen just a snap of a finger.
Yeah. Larry the Trucker, what kind of role do you think brokers versus maybe brokers and you as a carrier would play in ensuring security of loads? I mean, we're talking about fraud, we're talking about scams. People can just as easily one off you the same way they can anybody else. So, how can we expect brokers to be more accountable to protecting people like yourself in the business today? What comes to mind when I ask that question?
Well, excuse me. Sorry. Had a frog in my throat. No, I only deal with brokers when I go out to California, when we're dealing with produce, when I deal with produce loads. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of it where one load's been booked 2 or 3 times. You'll
Right.
get one truck show up, then 2 more behind it, and it's for the same load.
Yeah.
So it's like, put that out there, like, whoever gets there first gets it.
Now that's not necessarily right either. I mean, because in that case, you could have more than one carrier booked on the same load, and you could waste, $100 worth of fuel driving to a location just for nothing. I mean, that is by far, I think, the worst deficit of double brokering. But when you talk about, fraud, it goes further than that. I mean, it's one thing to double broker a load, but it's another entirely to put someone on a load with the idea that they may get paid, but then not. So I mean, there's a dichotomy there. I mean, who wants to work for nothing at the end of the day? So I mean, do you think in terms of the industry, do you think it's time for some maybe new and updated measures? Or do you think the technology we're talking about tonight goes far enough?
I'd have to read the article and see what it's all about. But from what you're saying, it sounds like it'd be a helpful tool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't personally use trucker tools. So, I mean, if you're in the audience and you do and you have experience with what I'm talking about, by all means, opine, let me know in the comments. But I think this is basically a start. I've spoken about this in, I believe, 2 different lives, and it's been through 2 or 3 different articles. So it's not the first time it's been brought up. Congress wants to actually pass rules and laws, but there's a lot of people out there that are having trouble with the actual benefit to loss ratio of the whole industry. Well, the whole balance between privacy and security. Okay. With these tools being talked about in this specific article, like geofencing and document geotagging, think about it. What are the boundaries that we need to keep in place to make sure our rights are respected, but at the same time, keep those that are looking to do us harm away? So there's a balancing act that's always at play. And I don't know if maybe, your government poet has thought about that or maybe opined on it to a degree, but there always is a balancing act. You've got to, at one point, produce protections for those in the industry, but at the same time, you've got to allow for the job to still be done. So, what say you on that?
Well, as a company driver, I've had very, very, very little to do with brokers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to me as a company driver to contact a broker and try to get a load off a load board.
Right.
But I have, in my past, dealt with brokers.
Mm-hmm.
In my way of thinking, it is a scam, okay, to try and squeeze more money out of legitimate owner-operators, lease operators, and like I say, I had very little to do with them because as a company guy, I was not allowed to contact brokers.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just to just to procure the load, appointment time, schedule, stuff like that. More often than not, my experience with Landstar was such that in order for me to get the job done, I had to deal directly with brokers. But we at Landstar had our own brokers that worked for the corporations. So we dealt with things a little bit differently than you did, Poet. But still, you almost sometimes can't help but deal with them. So how does one differentiate between a quote honest broker versus somebody on the bad side who wants to do harm? That's kind of the thing I'm trying to figure out here. And how do you really tell? Real quick, Poet, what do you use to tell yourself whether or not the person you're dealing with, forget if it's a broker, just whoever you're dealing with on a load, is honest, or you think they're pulling a fast one on you?
My gut.
Mm-hmm. There you go. What about you, Larry? Is there something that you look for as a red flag that says, oh, not for me, dude, I'm going to move on?
The times when the brokers ask me to download an app.
Sometimes that can be an asset, though. It depends on the app. Really. If you're looking at just the main carrier apps that get you paid, there's not really a red flag in that. If you're talking about
at the same time, we'll get in trouble if we don't. So
true that. Sometimes you will. Sometimes they penalize you because you don't do it, so they don't know. Whatever. 18 Willow, he says
it's also like you said. There's a lot of information in that app that the company don't have.
Yeah. FMCSA gives out way too much information for public. I think there's some truth in that, because I feel at least 10 calls a day from foreign entities. That's interesting. I would have to wonder then what kind of system you're in. With Landstar, we had the same problem. I was always typically in with a set routine of brokers. And when I dealt with them, they knew when I was going to be done. And I'd be driving down the road, maybe a couple of hours away from emptying out. And then whammo, I'd get fielded with 15, 20 calls where, hey, you're close by. I've got this, and the problem I see with that is you're a broker and you're calling me. I'm driving. I'm doing my job. I'm not stationary. I'm not going to sit here and run numbers in my head. And I'm not going to, while I'm driving, sit here and deal with your BS story you're giving me to conveniently fill your need while still not allowing me time to do the research and the investigation and make the quality decision I need to make, whether what you're calling me on is worth it. And that happens so often. It drove me nuts. And finally, I stopped doing it entirely, and I just turned my ringer off. And I was like, no, I ain't dealing with it. I will call for your load, not the other way around. So that may be some good advice I could give to people out there watching the show. Don't entertain calls from brokers that need you to get them a load. Sometimes, maybe 5% of the time, that will work. The rest of the time, you're the fall guy when they call you. Thumper, go ahead. I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, if the load seems like it's too good to be true, don't take it.
Yeah. That's
like if it's a 200-mile run and it's paying $1,000, don't take it.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a government contract or a government load or something like that. Those are too good to be true. But they pay very well, but you got to read into it a little bit. But yeah, if it's like a short amount of distance for a stupid high price, yeah, that's a scam right there.
Usually 9 times out of 10, that's what it turns out to be, and we're not in the business for scams. We're in the business to make money and make lives different by getting the products and services done. And we're not here doing it free. That's a big mistake a lot of people make. They think, well, we're equal to that $1.50 or $1.30 a mile, whatever. That may be your thought on the going rate, but that's not what I'm taking. There are plenty of stories from people, both in comments, in previous videos, and in videos I watch, where there is a capability and there is a market out there for $3 plus a mile. You've just got to know where to find it You've got to have the business model to support it, and you've got to know what you want before you even start. And that's 90% of the problem. All these things we're talking about in this trucker fraud thing, basically 90% of that affects people that really don't have a business plan and they don't have an overall game. They're just flying by the seat of their pants, and they're unfortunately subject to whatever these scamsters or fraudsters want to play. And that's the sad fact. I mean, I rue the day when people actually start listening to the 150 years worth of experience that exists on this panel, because I mean, it'll put me out of business because I won't have much to talk about, but it'll make me feel good because that'll tell me people are listening. So that's my take on that. I mean, tools are a good thing, but what people make of it and what they do with it are another. I mean, let's think about the last thing before I move on. Let's think about the amount of people that take these tools and go a separate direction with it. I mean, Grumpy, think about the amount of times that we've seen people create these kind of tools that are designed to do nothing more than protect the everyday American. And then just as quickly as they grab these tools, someone comes out of the dark web or out of a dark room somewhere and says, look what I've got. I've got a way to get around it. And they find that loophole. They find that way in. How long do you think that's going to take?
Not very long. That's one of the things that, very scary about this new technologies and stuff that's coming out, even, with the apps and all that. And then you've got all this other technology with the ELD systems. You've got it now with the automated trucks and stuff. I mean,
that's why I'm asking you, because you are specific to one purpose in this question, and that's you used to have experience working on computers. How often did people present you with a problem they had with their computer, but just as quickly as you came up with a solution, someone would come right behind that and say, oh, no, you can't do that. Or the other way around, they'd present you with a problem they were having, and you'd find a loophole or a way around that problem, even though they didn't know about it. It just wasn't widely publicized. I mean, that's real common in computer reparts, especially computer repair, rather.
Yeah, and I mean, in that regards, I mean, just like with computer repair, this technology, I'd say 75 to 80% of the people that would bring me their machines usually had viruses. So, I mean, just wait. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and in 18 Willow's comment below says he looks for an actual domain for the contact email. If you get a broker with a Gmail, Yahoo, or Hotmail, big red flag. Good call. I'd totally forgotten to even mention that. So thank you for throwing that in there. Yeah, I mean, I look time after time if they've got, like, if they're from CH Robinson, I look for that CH Robinson domain or whatever company they represent. As soon as it says Gmail, Hotmail, or otherwise, I'm like, no way. I can't tell you. I've got a folder in my email box right now that is full of literally hundreds of people that are trying to get me to buy crap I don't need. And they're all Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, you name it. And I mean, they're all obviously fraudulent, and they're all, fake, obviously. So it goes a long way to, I mean, watch yourself while you're out there, because people want your money and they don't care if they come by it honestly or not. It's really a damn shame when you think about it.
Right.
Any thoughts before we move on, guys? Oh, we're good. Okay. Well, we're going to move on to a topic I think is equally as dangerous as round one fight. So stay tuned, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive deep into a currently shaping industry trend. Recently, on something called Commercial Carrier Journal, I found an article that pretty much says The currents are powerful enough to sink ships and stall engines. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, as a million-mile driver myself, I've been through ups and downs and everything in between. This isn't just a market commentary. This is a call to every one of you out here, every owner operator, every driver. Start paying attention. It's time to see the road ahead, even when it's foggy, and steer carefully. This Commercial Carrier Journal article brings out some information about the economic outlook looking forward. But don't be fooled. There's some information in that article that you really have to skeptically look at and be careful at what you see. It refers to things like overcapacity, freight market pressures, having your eyes forward. There's a lot to it. Okay, but here's my take on this. Yes, we have an overcapacity problem. There's more trucks than freight, and it's driving rates down. And this is what happens when your supply of trucks overshoots the demand. If you're running your own rig, you're feeling it right now. For those working under large carriers, you might not see it as clearly, but trust me, it's there. It's affecting you as well as everyone else out there. But here's the question I want to pose. They refer to some loans in there in order to help people through these hard times. Now, my question to you, if you read the article, are these loan extensions they're talking about and deferred payments that they're really preferring to offer later on really going to help small operators? Or are they just keeping a Band-Aid over a system that needs fixing? These temporary patches might keep the lights on, but are they setting you up for even bigger problems? As it pertains to freight markets, well, the cost of doing business today is through the roof. Fuel prices, insurance premiums, all that, it's all going up. And while rates are stuck in a tailspin, some of you guys are running on razor-thin margins, stretching every dollar and squeezing out whatever profit you can. But the question is, how long can you keep this up? Now, some of you guys are out there like thinking, when does this all end? And who are we talking about? Okay. The American Trucking Association, one of the people in this article represented by the ATA, Bob Costello, he's sounding hopeful, but he's also kind of sounding the alarm too, okay? He's saying things like they're seeing signs and they're seeing changes come. They've been baiting us with that for a long time. What Costello sees is as a light at the end of the tunnel might not be showing up on our roads just yet. It may be down the road quite a bit. So the optimism is there, but the results aren't. So what I want to do tonight is take what's in this article and what I've given you just now. I want to hit on 3 key topics. I want to talk about it with you in the audience, see what you think about it. And then I want to close out tonight's show with some tips for you guys to use going forward that they don't care to mention in this article. And people, unless they're experienced like myself or the panel, really don't have time to tell you, but it helps to discuss and know about. That's what Frontlines is all about. So if you don't mind, before we go any further, take a moment, go down below, hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber, take a moment, hit that button. It won't hurt. It don't cost you anything. But this is the kind of thing we want to talk about and spread the word on. You guys need to know strategies, tips, and what's really happening. You'll see the story, but I pull it apart and make it make sense for you. So let's begin to do that right now. This Carrier Journal, I don't really read a whole lot of these guys. Sometimes they make sense, but other times I've got some issues with them. So let's hash this one out. One of the first things it talks about is, or one of the first things I want to highlight anyway, is overcapacity. How many times have you, if you've watched any of my shows and you've watched any of my videos, okay, there's always this dichotomy and an argument between whether there's an overcapacity or whether there's a shortage. I think we've been down that road before. there is no shortage. There is an overcapacity. So without getting in the weeds into that argument, okay, how do you guys on the panel anyway think that the overcapacity in trucking has affected the average owner operator versus those like mega carriers and people like Werner's and Schneider's and JB Hunt? Thumper, what do you think? Do you think it's just something where there's really no way to make a comparison, or do you think it's really something you feel every day when you turn the key?
I don't think about it. I really don't. I mean, I look for drivers just like any other owner operators because I have multiple trucks.
Right.
And I do my thing, and as long as I reach what I have planned out for that day, my goal for the day,
right?
If I reach that, then I'm happy. If I don't, well, I just gotta try harder tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, as far as your question, that's
well, I mean, they're using the overcapacity argument as a means to justify what they call these loans and deferrals. I mean, okay, so you as an owner operator decided to get into a business at a boom time, which what they were referring to is, and more people than not always commonly referred to as when COVID happened. Everybody got in when the market was good. And they just did not have the foresight to predict that when times are lean, they've got to be able to get through that lean time. And now everybody's looking for handouts. So that's the very thing that they're talking about. And the very question I started posing when I originally mentioned it, you know, are these loans and deferrals really providing breathing room, or are they just a Band-Aid? What do you think?
They're just a Band-Aid. I've seen it with the COVID and up in North Dakota when we had the oil field boom. There was trucks coming in left and right. I mean, Fate knows what I'm talking about. He was out in the oil field too.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then it's one of those things that just quits. And now everybody's like, well, I can't afford this $5,000 truck payment a month. And because they went out and bought brand new trucks. I mean, what's wrong with what's wrong with an old truck? You don't need brand new.
I think you and Fate will kind of agree but disagree on that part. So be careful on that one.
So,
Speaking of, go ahead, I'll let you finish.
I run older trucks and I stay up on the maintenance and they treat me good. I mean, you kind of gotta have a little bit of mechanical background in this industry to know what you're getting.
Yeah, true. But at the same time, when you buy that older truck, looking to get into an industry that you know may not always be fruitful, you've got to prepare yourself and plan ahead for those times when you know things might not be so prosperous. You've got to plan for both good and bad. And I've heard somebody in this panel say that routinely. It's not just get in and go. You have to plan and plan wisely. Isn't that right, Fate? I've heard you opine about that on a few recent live shows of your own. And a lot of people today do not plan correctly. And I think that's probably one of the things that caused this very discussion to be necessary. What do you say?
Well, first off, good evening. And I agree with Thumper that you don't need brand new equipment. The only thing I would probably disagree with Thumper on is I believe fuel efficiency is vital in this industry. It's our largest expense as owner operators, fuel. So I believe in fuel efficient trucks, but they don't need to be brand new trucks. And yeah, all you got to do is I posted a video the other day about the American dream. You know what I mean? And all you got to do is go in there and read the comments, and you can tell the people that A, have been in trucking too long and are very disgruntled, or B, have not been in trucking long enough to understand this industry.
Yes.
And how to weather the storms. Because that's all business though, man. That's not just trucking. That is every business. Every industry has to weather storms.
It does, yeah. Without planning, you're dead in the water. I mean, and bear with me, guys, because I'm trying to get something to work right, and it's not cooperating with me as usual for some reason, because I wanted to bring up my next point, because it really pulled off. Because one of the videos I recently seen you make, I was highly impressed with, and I thought I'd briefly touch on it in a moment, because what touched me in that one video, it may be recent or maybe the one beforehand, but in this one vlog video you were talking about, Scott, was the decision-making process going into, do I stay where I'm at, or do I deadhead 300 miles for a better rate? Kind of ties into what we're talking about, because if you're not thinking about the bottom line and utilizing every cost and every expense the right way, that's kind of one of the things that gets you into trouble. Can you talk about that a little bit? That was to you, Fate. I don't know if you were prepared for that or not. Oh, apparently not. I mean, Larry, give me a thought on that. I mean, answer the question, would you deadhead 300 miles for a load for, let's say, $3 a mile? Okay. Or would you look for maybe $1.80 a mile, real close to you, to get you close to where you want to be?
I would look for the $1.80 mile load just to get me closer to that $3 mile load.
Okay, but what if where you wanted to, let's say you were in Longhorn, Texas, okay? You had presented in front of you a load 50 miles away from you, $1.80 a mile, and you had to get that load and maybe go 500 miles to get closer to where you truly want to be, which is, let's say it's Meridian, Mississippi, okay? So that load will pay you $1.80 a mile, and it will get you close to Meridian, Mississippi. But if you were to deadhead 200 miles away and pick up a load that would get you that same destination, but you had to drive 200 miles away to get it, and it paid you $3.50 a mile, what would you think on that one?
Oh yeah, I would suck up the mile then.
Okay.
I would take $3 a mile.
That's kind of the difference, and I think I probably sliced it and probably killed the example, because I was watching.
I mean, for instance, my load that I picked up, I'm supposed to be picking up here in California. It was paying me $885 to go from Reno down to Fresno.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a $2.86 miles. $2.86 a mile.
Per mile. Right. Okay.
Because we have to go the long way.
Right. Fate,
So,
did you have anything you wanted to add to that? I mean, was I correct in describing that right? I mean, did I read that video the right way or no?
Yes, you did. So I was talking, but I didn't realize my mic was muted.
Okay. No, go ahead, please. Definitely.
So let's lay the scenario out exactly how it was.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and needed to get to Wisconsin for a business meeting I had, right?
Right.
Now my choices were, on the day I got empty, to take a load for $800 that I was grossed out to legal weight, right?
Right.
From Cincinnati to Wisconsin.
I knew there was a fact I was missing, and that was
it. Where I could get the same rate from Indianapolis or Chicago to Wisconsin. I already had to head north. So, like, I had to make a decision. Now, that load that paid $800 to the bottom line, what you have to add that into the gross on all miles, right? But that one load I lose money at.
Right.
So I made a decision. Well, I don't want to spoil it because there's another video coming out. But my decision was, do I deadhead to Indianapolis, which I have to go to anyways, from leaving Cincinnati back to Wisconsin, and make the exact same amount of money than leaving Cincinnati fully loaded? That's more wear and tear on my equipment, where at the bottom line, I have a better rate per mile deadheading up into Indianapolis or Chicago. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I respect the fact that you don't want to divulge too much, but I think that was really diving into the core of most people's problems. They fail to think or take into account exactly what it is that makes running an efficient operation as efficient as it can be. And that very scenario perfectly explains it. How many people actually stop and think like that? Not many, especially if you're a company driver, but moreover, it's important if you own your own equipment, because why kill your equipment?
I'll spoil the beans, right? So I got unloaded on Friday and wanted to leave the Cincinnati, Ohio area Friday afternoon. I ended up waiting until Saturday morning, not even 12 hours after I got unloaded, to get a rate that was $4 a mile up into Wisconsin. I just had to sit and basically take a 12-hour break after getting unloaded. So like that all weighs into decision making in my mind as a business.
Right.
You know what I
mean? But in a case like that, it sounds like the time was worth it, because in the end you got, at the end of it all, you got more revenue. So that was I killed it. Well,
I got lucky. That doesn't happen all the time. I got lucky.
I wasn't going to say that, but that's your call entirely. But how many people actually stop and think about stuff that way? I never thought, to be honest with you, it's a learning experience, this discussion we're having. Because honestly, when I owned my own truck for 7 years that I did, I never thought of it that way. I always chased the best rate, and I chased it as close to me as possible. I didn't think about the difference between, well, I'll go 250 miles, like in your case, and take into consideration the difference between the heaviness or the wear and tear. All that never played. All I was doing was chasing the dollars. See, and that's what I like to talk about, ways to learn different things. So thank you for that lesson. That's great. So yeah, keep up the good work with your vlogs, by the way. They are excellent. I'm following them, and I urge everybody do the same. Let's talk about one other thing in this article that I really think needs some addressing. And in previous, I've said a lot negative about this whole driver shortage. Depending on where you stand and where you represent yourself in the industry, it can be a problem or not. But I don't believe in the ATA, and I don't believe in the stuff they espouse as far as a shortage. But one thing is currently really clear, and that there are fewer carriers by numbers in the industry. And that's only because, again, they got in during the pandemic and they found out it's not working. So there's fewer carriers, but the numbers are still there. We still have an overcapacity. But using their wording in the article, with fewer carriers operating, do you think, or do you feel like in the audience, like there is any relief from or around the underlying problem of there not being enough work or worse rates? Do you feel like the shortage they're talking about is a problem? Or do you feel like me, like it's just an excuse? Let me know in the audience what you think. Put it in the comments. Meantime, Grumpy, what do you think? Do you think it's something, or do you think it's just BS?
I be honest with you, during the pandemic issues, a lot of things were going and booming. I mean, freight was going crazy because they needed people to deliver the stuff and bring it around. But at the same time, equipment was hard to come by because a lot of production lines and stuff was shutting down. So most of these guys got in the door because they got not only monies given to them like a grant, but also they found stuff that was inexpensive to purchase, because a lot of people were like, oh, well, let's give it up right now because we're going to be shut down. We can't move. So people were selling off their equipment, so it made it a lot easier for others to buy.
Right.
So it's kind of throwing a lot of people into this bind because, it's not the hit. I'm not hitting directly at foreigners, but when they found out that it was a great market during this time, they hopped right on it. I mean, that's extra money in their pocket.
Busloads, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny because in the very same vein, okay, the last point I'm going to make, and I'm going to move on to some tips, so stick around. Don't go anywhere. because these will be valuable. And I'm gonna involve everybody in a panel with these tips, so everybody's gonna have their share. So you'll learn something. But one thing I found interesting is that on the same side, they're talking about shortage being a problem and the overcapacity being, in your face. Costello mentions, and again, this is the guy that represents the ATA, says he mentions the need for some carriers to exit the market for real recovery. Well, I'm sitting here, hole drilling in my head kind of thing, going, okay, you either have a shortage, you have a problem, or you don't. Why are you suddenly hitting me up with, okay, we need carriers to exit the market if that's not the problem? I mean, who here wants to make sense out of that argument? And this is in the same article, mind you. Totally blowing my mind. I mean, I'm not trying to talk negatively about the person that wrote the article, because, I mean, the journal is usually pretty straight up, but this one really kind of threw me. Again, it says, Costello mentions the need for some carriers to exit the market for real recovery. So my question to you is, do you agree, or do you think we're by this old philosophy of it's survival of the fittest? What do you guys think? Anyone? Go ahead, Thumper.
Yeah, it is survival on who can get the better business plan together.
Yeah.
If you could stick, if you're there in the good times, you could stick it out through the bad times, you're gonna succeed. That's simple as that. And as far, I honestly, there is no driver shortage. I really don't think there is. There is a skill shortage in the industry where people don't know what they're doing. They don't know, they really don't know how to drive. They just go to the school, get their CDL, and jump in a truck and go. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way I say it. And I mean, there is a lot. I've been, since I started talking to you guys, I've noticed a lot more carriers out there that I've never seen before, never heard of before. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of carriers out there. They, even though they own be one truck, two truck, whatever it is, but there's a lot of them out there. There's no driver shortage. There's a skill shortage. There was something else I had thought of, but I can't think of it off the top of my head all of a sudden.
We'll probably have a lot of time to opine on this. I've just counted and looked at 7 separate tips I want to offer those watching this live show right now. So whether you're watching it right now or you see it on the replay, definitely hang tight, because in the next 8 minutes, we're going to talk about that very thing. I think tips you need to know about to not only run your business, but also deal with everything that this carrier journal talks about. Because I personally feel like it's a bunch of BS, and you guys will be well served to doing the job right to begin with. I mean, it's common sense stuff. It's what is in probably almost all of our vlogs, if we all vlog at all. I can't speak for everybody on this panel. But if you want to run business today, you've got to know what you're doing. So
can I answer that question real quick?
Go ahead, Fake. Go ahead, by all means.
The question you just asked, Thumper.
Sure.
Some carriers do need to exit the industry. We kind of talked about it yesterday. The carriers that are doing things illegally need to just they need to be out. Now, I don't really think there's a shortage of truck drivers. Parts of the country are scarce with freight. I mean, you just heard me talk about what I experienced in Cincinnati, Ohio on a Friday afternoon. But now, granted, that was heading north. If I wanted to head east or west, I could have found a load, but I had somewhere I needed to be. So yeah, I do think there are carriers that need to exit the industry, but the driver shortage thing, I don't really see it. You know,
do you agree? Do you agree with his statement about there being a skills shortage? That's a different side of it, and I think he's got credibility behind that statement he made.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that.
We have way too many people, in my opinion. We have way too many people in this industry that just basically go through the motions and they really don't know what they're doing. That whole skills gap thing, there has a huge credibility to. Go ahead, Grumpy.
Yeah. I will agree with Fate on this. I mean, to be honest with you, we need to figure out some way to do a really good vetting of the trucking system. I mean, get rid of the ones that are these overnight fly-by-night carriers that are just there to catch $1 or $2. Get rid of those ones that have no training credentials to allow people to drive for them. Look at their CSA scores, different things like that. A lot of vetting needs to be done, and then I think that will help a lot with our rates.
Yes, definitely. I agree wholeheartedly. If you're watching the show and you've got a couple of tips you want to offer in addition to what I'm about to go through this list of 7 tips, please put it in the comments. Let us know or call our studio line 860-785-3547. Because when it comes down to running efficiently and actually running for the long haul, these things are things I think will help boost your ability to survive, whether you're a rookie or whether you're still early in your journey, or there's a few years behind you and you have things geared up and ready to go. Given the landscape we're talking about and this very article we were referring to a moment ago, these are things I think you need to bear in mind. Number one, know your costs inside and out. Calculate everything from fuel to maintenance to insurance. Know exactly what it costs to run your truck with each mile. Don't just break it down to week or month or year. Break it down to the mile. This way you can see every single diversion, problem, or thing that crops up when it happens. Don't wait for that yearly or semi-annually breakdown to understand what your problems are or what you need to improve. Okay, if you break even, you're not getting anywhere. But if you profit, you're getting somewhere. The best way to understand that is breaking down and calculating everything.
I gotta interrupt you, boss man.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Fate. No, seriously. If I'm wrong, tell me.
If you break even, you're doing okay.
Well, I didn't say
not
you
every
weren't.
not.
I just say it's
just
better.
Did. You said you.
Okay, you're right. I did.
Sorry.
I kind of did. I'm reading a script, so there are talking points, as it were. So I'm kind of trying to keep track of things. No, you're not. You're not doing anything bad. So you're saying break even should be a good thing, not a bad thing?
Breaking even, it means you're above water.
Right.
I mean, the owner operators that are in here know that not every month are you profitable. There's months you lose tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, that's a reality. So I'm not saying your goal should be to break even, but breaking even doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, as long as you have months in there that you are showing a profit.
Do you think that what I said kind of transmitted that, or I don't know, because I don't want to be misunderstood, because I agree with what you're saying, but when I ran my truck, I was not break evens. Why am I doing this? It just makes no sense to me. So my mindset is I want to profit something. I don't want to be just break even, because then I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. So that's the only reason I said that.
I feel like I'm gonna be too what's the word, like analytical in my response to that, and maybe say the wrong thing, and that's not what I intend to do. I think that's part of the problem. Like,
go ahead. You're making sense.
I've made this statement. I've made this statement before. Not everybody is meant to be an owner operator. And I'm not saying you're not meant to be one. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is understanding business means there could be years that you lose money. Like, and you shouldn't look at it like, well, what is this worth? Like you're building something. You're starting from the bottom, building up with a whole lot of debt usually. You know what I mean?
Most people are, yeah.
Being an owner operator or being a business mindset, like you're not looking at the sole month, the sole quarter, or the sole year. You're looking at a projection of 5 years from now. Does that make any sense? Like,
True. It's kind of backwards to what I said. I mean, if you look at every year or what, because I think what I was trying to communicate was if you look at the cost per mile as opposed to the cost you spend over a year, You got a better breakdown. That was the original point, and I digressed into something else. But what you're saying is planning farther ahead helps you see that better, I think is what you're saying.
Yes. And don't get me wrong, knowing your numbers is vital. Knowing your fixed costs is very, very important.
Yes.
And then having a budget after years of knowing an idea of what your maintenance costs are year over year is vitally important. You know what I mean?
Amen.
And that's what I said earlier about running a fuel efficient operation. Knowing your fuel costs year over year or month to month is important as well.
Right. And let me tell you something. I value everything you're offering here and every piece of wisdom you're offering to me. So I implore the audience, hang tight, listen to the rest of my tips, but do this. Also put in the comments if you would like to hear Fate and myself and others on this panel opine on this even more. If you'd like to learn from this kind of discussion, let me know in the comments. I want to entertain this kind of discussion because believe me, I'm learning stuff here. I know you guys got to. Tip number 2, I want to talk about: choose your loads wisely. Don't look at every load like it's the only opportunity you have. But not every load is profitable, especially when rates are up and down the way they are in today's market. Understand the costs associated with everything you do. You want to focus on the loads that pay well, but also align with your goals and your costs. Just as in the case that Fate and I just got done talking about moments ago. Track your fuel prices. This is on the same tip. Plan routes smartly. Apps like Gas Buddy and Trucker Path can help you if you use things like that and think of your routes as something to profit or lose from. Fuel is one of your biggest expenses, so you really have to plan what you're driving and how you're driving strategically so that you can save the most on fuel, as Fate said a minute ago. What we're doing right now is a good idea. Next tip is network with other truckers. Learn from people that have experience you may not. Like in this conversation right now, you'll learn things from people like us you may not have already thought about. And it takes a news story or a news show like this to bring it up, or even just networking with somebody down the road that has the same operating business model you do. You could learn something from them. So talk to them, learn things. Don't be afraid to share them, okay? From business partnerships to networking, whatever you do, you can learn a lot from others. Stay up to date with industry trends, understanding what we're talking about the market, the ups and downs, and things going on with regulatory changes can keep you in the know and keep you prepared for the disasters when they happen. Invest in preventative maintenance. I can't stress that enough. It's the one single thing that ruined me with 7 years worth of truck that I'd put over 500,000 miles on. Okay, the last thing you need is a breakdown, and that puts you out of commission. And regular maintenance not only helps you keep that truck on the road, but avoid those big breakdowns along the way. Simple things like oil changes and checking tire pressure, keeping a schedule on maintenance, they can go a long way to saving you and keeping you out of the garage and making money. Here's a big one that I know you're going to probably glom onto, Fate. I pointed it out specifically for you. Leverage tax breaks and financial assistance. Don't underestimate the fact that you can use programs to actually keep you in the green, make you money, and if done correctly, can actually help you move forward in business today. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because the expert, I think, is somebody outside of this panel or maybe in this panel. I don't know jack about taxes, but I felt it needed to be said. Last but not least, and I'll let you guys close it out for me, have a long-term plan. Most of us on the road today, most of us don't even have a clue what we want to do. Some of us do. God bless those that do. But if you set financial goals and you build a plan to be financially independent, it is possible to do. And there are ways we can come back and opine on later is exactly how that's done. But that's something I think a lot of people don't think about. I'll go through the panel, and one by one, you guys can tell me, did I miss something, get something wrong? Let me have it. Fate, I'm going to start with you because I directly put two of those points in there at your benefit because you speak about both of those things frequently. What say you?
I think those were very good tips. I wanted to talk on one of them in particular where you talked about staying up with preventative maintenance. And I heard Thumper say earlier that he does a good job of that and is probably a little bit more mechanically in tune than I am. But I would say that that's an important part too. Find somebody that will teach you how to work on your truck. I've saved tens of thousands of dollars by what I've learned over the 4 years by people teaching me. And one more, like I said, I think every tip is good, but one of the biggest things you said is take advantage of taxes, man, and understand that this country, like no matter what people are saying in the news, your Fox News, your CNN, or anything like that.
Yeah.
This country, this country's tax code is written for businesses. 100%. It is written for businesses, and take advantage of that.
Yes. And I implore anybody watching this show on the replay, if you're familiar with that, and if you'd like to come on my show and opine on that and make the audience that we serve smarter, by all means, get in touch with me, either through my studio line, 860-785-3547, or send me an email at thatstruckinnews@outlook.com. I would love to explore that conversation further to benefit you in the audience and make you that much smarter. That's what Frontlines is here for. Anything you think I missed, Larry, I want to hear it from you. Do you think I hit everything good enough for you, or do you think maybe I missed something?
Well, I learned quite a bit just now. I mean, yes, the maintenance thing, yeah, you got to learn how to do stuff on your own because it helps.
It does. It does.
And then the tax stuff, yeah, I'm not too familiar with that stuff, so I've never really dealt with that because my company does that for me.
Well, I mean, everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses. I mean, nobody's saying they have a lease program. I mean, you're just as much entitled to tax breaks and fuel savings as the rest of us. Just because you lease a truck doesn't mean you're anybody bad or anything. You talk like it's an illness.
Well, depending on who you ask, I mean, this company is worse than most places. So,
well, I wouldn't let your boss hear you talk about that.
Oh no, I love it here.
Yeah, I know. I'm just picking on you. Thumper, what do you got to say? Do you think I hit everything on the head, or do you think I kind of missed anything, or do you got something to add to it?
Oh, I always got stuff to add. No, generally you hit it right on point and stuff. And the couple things I want to add are kind of more personal related than business related. I mean, you do have a 5-year plan, have a 10-year plan. Or goal, I always use the word goal because if you don't achieve it, you're not beating yourself up as bad.
True that.
That's why I say goal. But that's a big thing too, right there. Make sure you got enough money in your account just in case an engine goes down. That's another big one. Or transmission, rear end, whatever, something major. It takes a lot of money to run these trucks. Your basic maintenance, tax cuts. Now the more personal stuff is don't order food out all the time. Like, I'm serious. I got a fridge in my truck, and I actually make I call them hobo meals. It's tin foil, and I got like potatoes, carrots, meat, and I throw it on the manifold and let it sit there and cook while I'm driving down the road.
Really? There are people that still do that? I thought that was just the old-fashioned way of doing it. I didn't think people did that today.
Just don't. If you do like a can of soup like Chef Boyardee or like tomato soup, make sure you vent it, because if it blows up, your truck turns red.
Not to mention you'll drive around smelling a can of beans all the damn time.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I cook I cook steaks, oval meat, potatoes and stuff like that. And generally I'll do it like an hour and a half, 2 hours before I'm going to shut down for the night while I'm driving down the road, and it's nice and cooked. But yeah, that's the main thing is like, just try not to overspend too much stuff on yourself. That's where a lot of people go broke, is eating out, doing this, doing that. Um, if you could limit your spending to what you need and plan your stuff so you don't have so much deadhead, so you can maximize your time, know your worth, like how much your time is worth and everything else, you're going to succeed.
Yeah. Just making smart decisions, really. It's all it is. I mean, at the end of the day, the better decisions you make for today, the more you'll. When people got in during that overcapacity, they weren't counting on there being such a low flow in the rates. They didn't know what was going to happen today back in 2020. But here we are now, 2024. We have what we have. So what you just mentioned a minute ago goes a long way to making sure people are prepared for the bad when it happens. Last thought, Thumper.
Last thought, know your worth. Have a business plan. Make sure you get everything like aligned before you just jump into it. And another thing is, God bless everybody in the affected areas, the hurricane cleanup, the wildfires, and everything else. God bless all the EMTs, firefighters, and policemen out there. We don't do it just for us and our families. We do it for you guys.
Amen to that, man. We're the voice every day. We are wholly determined to tell you guys what happens, what matters, and where to find it. Together, we'll keep an industry alive, kicking, and resilient. Don't just sit on the sidelines. Get involved, stay informed, and be vocal. Subscribe to Truckin City Media and look for our exciting opinion-based videos coming your way, telling the world we can make trucking great again. We're live twice a week, coming to you Wednesday and Saturday at 11 or 7 o'clock at night. We're doing this with a determination to see more of you back here next week. Don't forget, guys, it's the trucks that make the deliveries, but it's you that make the difference. And while you're doing the job and keeping it real, we'll be keeping the faith, helping you keep it rolling.